G'day Groovers, take two, and g'day Fin Bugden, take two.
Yeah, how's it going?
But Fin and I were just live. God, it was awesome. We kicked ass big time.
Morning, Ruth.
Till we realised we weren't live. I realised we weren't live because I refreshed my YouTube channel. I'm like, it's still waiting for me. Hey Ruth, hey Frenchy Kisses, how you doing? 3 a.m. in Canada, that's a massive effort from you. I don't know if you'll know much about the proposed mandatory media bargaining code in Australia. It's a pretty heavy subject, and especially at 3 in the morning, but good to have you here. Fin and I, for the next hour, are going to be pretending to be we're going to be pseudo-intellectuals, pretending to be intellectuals, talking about a mandatory media bargaining code that's been proposed in Australia, and YouTube and Google, who are a team, and Facebook are losing their shit over it. And there's not many people talking about it on YouTube, and Fin and I are a bit surprised by that because we all got, as YouTube creators in Australia, these full-on warnings. First they came from Google, then they came from YouTube, then more from Google, and then Facebook joined in and just said, fuck yous all. If this comes in, forget ever sharing any Australian content on your Facebook pages. In a nutshell, Fin is going to fill us in on what he's been up to. Lovely looking intellectuals. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
If we don't know what we're talking about, we might look okay. When we have these chats, I like to be a bit of a devil's avocado because Fin and I have got very similar views on aspects of it, but there's no point both of us just being an echo chamber for an hour and bleating on about stuff. So in some instances, I'm going to throw little spanners in the work over the next hour, just points to consider that have been raised by other media outlets and independent media experts and stuff like that, just to try to make it a little bit more interesting as far as the discussion goes. G'day, Casper. We're also more than happy to, if there are people that are following this, to jump up on panel with us, either while we're going through some subject matter at the start or later on if you want to jump up and have a comment, throw in some comments as well. Because it's one of those things, isn't it, Fin, that the mandatory bargaining code on paper and what it looks like and what it's intending to do, and the reaction from Google, YouTube and Facebook are poles apart. And I've said from the start, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. The problem is, though, we're not really going to know unless this thing comes in and we get to see what it's like when it's being implemented.
Yeah, it's there's too many predictions to really foretell what it's going to be like. So yeah, we will have to wait till it comes in. But let's hope that it doesn't come in because I don't really want to see the world that it'll be with it. Although I don't know. I don't know. Because there is multiple ways it turns out. I mean, there could be some more positives to it than negatives.
Correct, and there's also certainly some news media outlets that aren't looking on it in a negative light, which leads me into our first subject to chat about. Fin, since I met him, has blossomed into an investigative journalist. And fill us in on your story. Fin's basically been working his butt off to get comments from regional news business outlets. So fill us in, Fin. What have you been up to?
So I found a list of all the regional newspapers in our area, and by area I mean Australia. So I emailed all of them individually, finding out like the names and details and stuff, which apparently makes it much easier to get responses. So out of the 145 I sent to, I think I got between 6 and 7. I can't remember. I think it's safe to say 6, but there could have been a 7th one that responded. I've talked to all of them but one on the phone so far, and I've got one now to come on the channel and give her views, which was the other night. So
yeah, really interesting. I know Claire Bear, who's in my channel a lot too. One of my moderators was in your chat too. Were they the 145 news media outlets that were listed in that response that was sent out?
Yeah, it's in there as well.
Yeah. So you had Helen on. I've forgotten it sounded like Warrnambool, but it's not. The other night on your channel.
Yeah.
What was it? What's the paper she's from?
Maroubal.
And it's a Ballarat area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
she has 11,500 viewers.
Now, what was interesting
every week, I think it is.
Yeah, which is a lot, in a regional area. I mean, we've got two regional newspapers down here that I pick up every time I go to my local shop because it's got the news I want to know. I'm very active in my community and so on. And the ones that I get are similar to hers. They're not ones that people pay for. They're pretty much funded by beneficiaries and advertising, from what I understand, at least the ones here are. Her stance was surprising to you, Finn.
Yeah, she was saying that they might actually benefit her newspaper as what she has at the moment. If this code passes and Google pulls, what'll end up happening is that all of the mainstream legacy media will disappear, and then once it's gone, then the local media is still going to be there, but it will start to take over because it may still be searched for in the algorithm. So Google may still allow the smaller stuff that doesn't fall into the classification that the big media will fall into. But there is a negative to that as well, because ABC technically falls under the same letterhead. So it may cancel the ABC in the search results, which could be a negative.
With her, though, one thing I found really interesting was that she said they don't really have a website. They don't really have an online presence. It's literally the physical paper that people go and pick up from shops and so on. So even that takes some publishers, like the ones that I access down here, they're not going to be affected by the code at all. In fact, they may even get more people picking up their papers and wanting to advertise and so on, because they're not going to be affected by the code. Their journalists aren't going to have to be paid for their material to be online. So, I mean, could this actually be the return of some of the, the smaller regional newspapers? Is it going to actually build them a bit? And like she pointed out, and I was surprised too, quite a few regional news media outlets, or at least one I know of, because they commented under one of my videos, has folded since COVID-19. And you kind of think, what a shame they weren't able to just hang on, because she was almost optimistic about it benefiting them, not harm.
Yeah. Very strange to see that. I didn't expect that at all going into the conversation.
No, which is good though, because it's good to see you on the spot and handling things, and and you had a really good chat.
I had a phone call with her previous, and that's when she first voiced the opinions. But during that phone call, like I was not expecting it to be like that. I thought it was just going to go the opposite way. So when she had a good look out on it, it was interesting, and I hope she's right, because then that's going to be
right. It'll be fantastic. It'll be fantastic because it'll be a lot more public interest, local news, and people might be more inclined to pick up their community papers and turn to them for the information and news, at least in their local areas. People will probably want to advertise if they've got a larger, I'm not going to say subscriber, but a larger base of people that are now accessing them. I know down here there's a benefactor who donates a lot of money to keep one of them afloat, and he might even, add a bit more to it to help with printing costs. So it could help them. It was an interesting interview.
Yeah.
If she's right and it does end up benefiting them, well, that's great. Now, Google, let's move on to them. There's a guy called Matt Koval who's from YouTube who keeps putting out little videos about Google and YouTube's stance on all of this. But Google, again, are threatening to leave, or this is actually new. Facebook's threatened to leave. And in terms of that, they mean they're not going to put any Australian news content onto their platforms. What do you think about this threat by Google to leave?
I think they'll do it. They've done it in Spain. So if they've done it in Spain, then they're not scared. Like they've already shown they were called a bluff. So.
And do you want to fill us in on what happened on Spain? I mean, neither of us are really experts in it, other than we know that it happened. And France too, I believe.
I don't know anything about France.
Yeah,
Spain I know very little about, but I know that their government tried doing the same thing for their legacy media. And then Google just pulled out as soon as it passed. And now there's, you search for Spain and news, your results are going to be quite limited, if anything. You know?
Well, this video from Matt Koval guy covered a lot of things. He covered big media business. He covered the algorithms and data use. It's another not surprising approach from Google/YouTube. I mean, they started out with an alarmist campaign and they're still going. And I'm not saying that's not warranted, but they really are sort of putting the fear of God into people about this, because this latest video from him essentially was saying that small YouTube creators could disappear down the timeline. So essentially, if someone goes onto Google and there's a topic they're interested in and they punch it in, what he's basically saying is all of these little teeny tiny creators are going to disappear onto page 20 and nobody's ever going to find their videos and what they're talking about. But I personally, as a creator, already think that small creators are on page 20. And I personally think that YouTube has already started to harm smaller channels by taking away a feature that was really critical for building your subscribers. Whether you want to get monetized on YouTube or not, that's another point. But there used to be a feature called Go To. So if you were in my chat, Fin, right now, and you said something on the panel and you said something in chat and my listeners enjoyed what you were saying, there used to be a little feature to the right of your name that they'd click on that said it was Go To the channel, and you'd click on that and it'd open up a new window and you could hit subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and you would gain new subs. And a lot of channels, small channels, grew very quickly because of that feature. YouTube took that away. So now if you're chatting in my chat, people can open up a new window. They can type in your name and go to your channel if it's got your channel's quite a unique name. But if, for example, your channel was called The Mighty Fin and there were 600 other Mighty Fins, they've got to look at your teeny weeny little thumbnail pic and scroll all the way down. Hey, Ruth and Claire Bear. Sorry, we did say hi to Ruth before. They'd have to scroll down page after page after page to find your tiny little thumbnail that matched and subscribe. And it's really hurt small channels from growing. And then on top of that, they've and I don't know if Casper's still around or not, but Casper's got a channel. Little wink from Claire. Hey, gorgeous. Another thing that they've done is for people that do want to get monetized, and by getting monetized, you get additional features like a community page where you can post pictures and updates and comments, promote lives you've got coming up, all that sort of stuff. And your subscribers automatically see those things on your community page as well, which helps you build your channel. But they also increased the number of hours you have to go live and also the number of subscribers that you have to have before you can even get monetized. And the other thing they did, when I first started going live on YouTube, I had 200 subs. I could go live on YouTube. They took that away. They made it you had to have 1,000 subscribers and X amount of live hours that you've done and viewing hours before you can just click a go live on YouTube button. So I've been using Streamlabs, StreamYard to go live. And again, that makes it harder for people to grow their channels. So it's interesting that their stance is all this code is going to damage small channels, because I'm not actually seeing a lot of support for small channels from them anyway, and haven't for over a year. So I think it's kind
I've not had that issue with the live on mine. When I filmed my first video on the SpaceX, it seemed to go live straight away, and I just created that channel.
But that's a video that you uploaded. That's different to going live.
No. It was a live stream.
Was it?
Yeah.
And you used
I don't know, maybe. Yeah, my girlfriend was watching it as I was doing it.
But did you use StreamYard like we're using it now? You
No,
just
it's went
went.
straight to YouTube.
See, I can't. I've never been able to go live on. Once they took that feature off you, unless you had 1,000 subscribers. So maybe they've fixed
I
that.
definitely don't have 1,000 subscribers.
Hey, Tracy, welcome, Trevor. Interesting. I might have to have another crack at it, but yeah, that was another.
I just got a one for some reason.
I mean, the go live thing, it didn't matter because we all discovered things like Streamlabs and StreamYard where we worked a way around that issue. But taking the go-to feature off the chat has severely impacted channels growing, because a lot of people, the go-to would just take you straight there. You'd subscribe. You're still listening to the live. Now it's a pain in the bum. And also, I mean, I used to sit in chat and subscribe to 20, 30, 40 people at a time watching lives. And now you're lucky if one person can be bothered finding your channel in a different window and subscribing. So I think that, it's okay for Google and YouTube to be a bit fired up about this, but I just find it a bit hypocritical that they're really pushing that this code is going to destroy small creators when they've already done some pretty destructive stuff themselves.
Yeah. Do you think they got forced to do that by the ads that were then starting to come onto YouTube, and then kind of those ad companies were like, well, we're not paying every single person. We want to only pay people that do this and this and this.
No, because
why do you think they brought that in?
You still had to make a threshold before AdSense and advertising and stuff kicks in. So, if anyone under 1,000 subscribers, that was irrelevant anyway. It's not till you monetize that ads start appearing. So what do you think the justification was for it? Like, well, it's fucking stupid. It's stupid because
it goes against their own creation.
Well, and also they make money off creators, and if you're monetized, they make way more money than they do off someone like me. So it's stupid because they cut off a source of income for themselves, but they've also made it like, if I'd been more proactive on my channel 2 years ago when I first joined the YouTube live community, and I was building a bit of a name for myself. Any live that I went into, I would have been able to pick up 10, 20, 30 subs just from being in someone's chat, making people laugh or whatever. And so, yes. We've got a few SpaceX fans. Tori is 790. You have to change your name again. Now it's 808. Casper's gone, I think, unfortunately. It did make it easier for the trolls to get away with crap too. That's true, Ruth, but I've only ever had fun trolls. So, sorry, 798th subscriber. You've got to change it to 808. I picked up 3 new subs tonight by going live and cooking for 40 minutes, which was very exciting. Because that doesn't happen very often. So, there's a lot of SpaceX-y people in chat. That's another thing we could chat about, Finn. I haven't given your video that you made like the time it deserves, but keen to chat with you about that at some point. I'm actually chewing my way through the new Challenger series on Netflix. And
which video was it?
Pardon?
Which video?
On your little UFO / man-made.
Oh yeah.
That thing.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the one you asked me to look at.
Oh yeah. I've sent you heaps though, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. You sent me heaps. Heaps more. Oh, sorry, mate.
SpaceX Monster might like that latest video. Go check that out, mate. It's pretty good. It took ages to make too, so if you'd like it, that'd be awesome.
I thought you only sent me the link to the one, but anyway, I'll have some time this week because I'm not studying this week. I've got a week off before my new course starts. So the Tic Tac incident's the one you sent me that I've watched.
Yeah. Interesting stuff, that one.
And I watched you with Helen. And that's the only 2 links you've sent me, Groover.
Ah. Well, there's another one. Oh, no, it's still uploading, so I won't be there for a while.
Right. Anyway, now, where were we? Yeah, so thank you, Claire, for dropping Finn's link too in the chat. So Tori's 798 subscriber, Finn, she is in the UK, and we all sat up and watched the rover come back to Earth a few weeks ago. At some ungodly hour, we got up. Man, there's another girl, I Have a Problem, who pops in as well. And so, yeah, we're all becoming space heads. Oh, go you!
That's right, recommend that one. That's the first time a private company has taken people up and brought them back. First time ever.
I know. How cool is Elon? But yeah, I'm watching the Challenger series on Netflix because I was actually living in the States. I was at a high school doing an exchange student year, and it's so bizarre because the Challenger series on Netflix starts with a classroom with a TV set up and all the kids watching it, and then they don't actually show it blowing up right at the start. But I was in a classroom in America watching it blow up because, you know, there's a teacher on board, Krista McAuliffe. But fuck, it's interesting. It's really interesting to hear the interviews about people that knew this was going to happen. You'll love it, Finn, because you're a bit of a conspiracy dude. So check it out. The NASA stuff, I've learned a lot more about NASA than I knew. I'm hanging out with SpaceX from now on. NASA are the bad guys.
Yeah, that's they just formed it in the wrong way. I don't know why they formed it the way they did, honestly, but yeah, it's it comes from a disturbed past.
Right. So going back to Matt Koval from YouTube, in his video, I've highlighted some points that I want to nut out with you, Finn, because we're both into this subject and I reckon it's interesting shit. So one of the things that he said in the latest video from Google is that the big media outlets under this code are going to be able to demand large amounts of money. Sorry, the journos are going to demand, you know, high payment, and it's the big media outlets that are being regulated by this proposed media code. So that's essentially what he's talking about. But he's basically saying it's going to get worse. But the whole point of the code is to stop the advantage that Murdoch and Packer have already got, at least in their official wording. That's the point of it. Why do you think they're pushing that part of it so much? Because how do we have the ACCC saying it's to level the playing field, and we've got Google saying there's going to be more money passed around? What do you think the logic is behind that, or the reality?
Well, in the ACCC, they're demanding that there is more money paid around. So at the moment, what he's trying to claim for, I don't have the link handy on me, but you can search for it, is $10 million a year minimum. And then for a certain view amount after that gets paid in increments. So that 10 million he's claiming is because, it's not 10 million, it's 100 million. My apologies. It's 100 million he's claiming per year, and then added on top of that, however much they want, which means in the contract that they released, it says that it's 10% of their earnings. So they're claiming that Google is bringing in $1 billion for them every year, so that nowhere, there's no way that's true. There's no way on earth that is true. There is no one going to Google or YouTube and watching $1 billion worth of Murdoch media in Australia.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no way. Mm-hmm. No way on earth. So, it's total BS. So they're right. I think Google is right on that, because they would have to know exactly what the numbers are for how many views they're getting. So they would know that the $1 billion is bullshit. And
that goes on to the data thing, because another thing that they're very vocal about is the data regarding viewer use, and saying it'll give big news outlets the advantage. But the thing is, they've already got our data. They've already got an advantage. So the code doesn't force them to hand over data. It's an option, whether they do or not. I mean, obviously,
I don't think in the code it says it's an option. I don't think it mentions that.
I'm pretty sure it does.
I think it just says they have to.
Hang on, let's get it up.
Yeah. I could be wrong. I can definitely be wrong. That's what I thought, though.
I thought it was optional. Whether it says that they have to, where's the draft code? Give me the code. God, you have to click on so many links just to get into this thing. That's probably why people aren't bothering chatting about it on platforms, because
no, it's easy to find. Yeah, that's definitely on purpose.
So the code sets a set of minimum standards for the treatment of news on digital platform services, and there's several things. There's the algorithmic ranking, recognizing original news content, providing information about how and when Google and Facebook make available user data collected through users' interactions with news content. So if they are provided with data, they have to disclose that, the media outlets, right? But it doesn't say that.
Can you say that again?
The minimum standards for the treatment of news on digital platform services address issues such as providing advance notice of changes to algorithmic ranking and presentation of news. So they do have to provide the algorithm information. Yeah. Appropriately recognising original news content, and providing information about how and when Google and Facebook make available user data collected through users' interactions with news content. So it's not compulsory for Google and Facebook. It is compulsory for the news outlets to provide that information if they're given it. But they're not being, Google and Facebook are not being forced to hand it over.
I'm just reading another bit here. It's saying like it's relevant to this. Okay, so let's go touch this way. C3. Okay.
And one of the reasons, just on that too, one of the reasons that's in the code is because at the moment, the big news outlets, or legacy media as you call them, they can be given that information, but smaller news outlets are not being given that information from Google or Facebook, which is why they're being disadvantaged still.
Yeah.
So the code
that's
is
why original content creators have been disadvantaged as well.
Correct.
So maybe
correct.
That doesn't come up either.
But I don't see anywhere where it says it's compulsory for Google and Facebook to hand it over. It's just if it is handed over, it has to be declared and transparent and on the table for everyone.
It so in section 5.2 ZC under paragraph 3, the responsible digital platform corporation must comply with a request under subsection 1 or 2. I don't know why I fucked that up so much. Which basically says the bargaining news business corporation may request the responsible digital platform corporation to give information and data relating to the digital platform service that is relevant to assessing the benefit.
See, again, the keyword's may. Not compulsory. It's one aspect of it in terms of reading.
Does it say may?
They may request it, but they don't have to hand it over. It's not a compulsory thing. So I think all I'm saying is I think that Google and Facebook, if they want to get people fired up about the data aspect, that's fine. But don't say it's compulsory, because it's not.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to read over that more, because I don't feel like that's definitive either way on that.
I think it is from a legal perspective. The word may is providing a lot of grey areas and room. What they're basically saying is if Google and Facebook and the big media outlets are chatting away and money's being paid and they're getting on the front page of everything and anything like that, and during the process of that any data or algorithm information is provided, it has to be made available to everyone. That's what it says, but it's not saying that they have to hand that stuff over. It's not compulsory. What is compulsory is if they do hand it over, if they've been requested to hand it over, they have to hand it over, and it has to be accessible for all news media outlets, whether it's the Batuta Advocate or the Herald Sun.
Why would they put it in there, though, if they weren't going to use it? I feel like you would only put stuff in the contract that you want, that you're thinking about, that you're actively thinking about.
Well, you've got to remember, though, this is a code of conduct. So what it's trying to do is establish a formula that has to be followed to try and stop the big media outlets being, getting all the benefits and getting all the advantages over the smaller ones. So at the moment, the way it is the Wild West, and Murdoch and Packer would be getting a lot of information and there would be a lot of money sliding around. The point of this code of conduct is to not disadvantage the smaller news outlets. And so that's why clauses like that exist, because if they are requested to hand over data or algorithms because it looks like it's been used incorrectly and it has to be shown so they can have a look at it, it is also then something that everyone can see so that no one misses out. It's about regulating conduct. That's the whole point of it, rather than fixing stuff that's likely to happen or making things compulsory across the board. It's more of a skeleton or a framework that the media and Google and Facebook all operate on so that everyone has a fair shot. That's the intention of a code of conduct. So what they're addressing is obviously in that inquiry last year. I think the data aspect of it, the bigger media outlets and Google and Facebook can fully take advantage of that, and all these little guys are struggling to get their stories on page 5 because of it. That's my reasoning behind it. But it isn't. The point is, it's not compulsory for the data to be handed over, and I think that irrespective of other aspects of the code that are really problematic, I don't think that Google's scare campaign's a good one. I really don't. I actually prefer Facebook's tantrum throwing "Fine, we're leaving" to Google putting out.
Well, Google threatened the same thing just last week, so I mean,
like people in chat are saying, and Geraldine pointing out that Google knows everything. I mean, I swear to God, I've sat in a room chatting to someone about going on a holiday, and the next thing there's an ad to that place on my Facebook page. I swear to God.
Yeah.
Big. And that's another thing, like Geraldine's pointing out. What's with YouTube putting up suggested videos? Yeah, exactly.
That happens a bit.
Claire Bear, I'm interested to find out who this impacts the most, Facebook and Google. Okay, well, on that, I personally, I think that it's, at the end of the day, and I've got an independent media expert we can look at in a minute, but at the end of the day, what everyone has to think about is who is the big player in this, the biggest player. It's not Murdoch and Packer. They're $9 billion a year turnover businesses. Google, 1.2 trillion per annum. So if we want to talk who the big gun is in this scenario, it ain't the Australian media, even the big Australian media. And that to me is another issue I've got, which is the people that have reacted and taken the Google Facebook stance and they're not looking into it or researching it or discussing it or trying to nut things out. Why are they so passionate about defending two massive American companies that are way bigger than anything in Australia?
Who's trying to defend it?
Well, no, the people that have seen the Google alert and the YouTube alert and they've gone live on YouTube saying, this is fuck, and they're very much on the Google Facebook side of things.
Is there many people on the side of the legacy media at the moment? Is there any videos up supporting them?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, God, no one's backing legacy media, but people are saying that Google and Facebook, or Google, let's leave Facebook out of the equation, that Google and YouTube with their alarmist campaign, they're believing every word that they've heard. And I don't understand why these Australian creators are going into bat so hard for Google and YouTube when they're massive American companies. Like, so if I had the technological ability right now, I would start a thing called AusTube, and it would be an Australian version of YouTube, and it'd be way fairer than the American YouTube setup for letting little creators grow. You know, but why are some people so blindly following these alerts they're getting from YouTube and, yeah, this is fucked, and why are Australians defending? I know. I mean, I'm not saying either way, but I find it really curious. We're very quick to go, we don't want to be like America, and there's too much American influence already, and blah, blah, blah. And yet this alert comes out from YouTube and Google, and everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people in Australia that have spoken, well, there's not many of them, kind of fired up saying, I'd be pissed off too if I was Google and YouTube. And I don't get it. I don't get where this sudden loyalty is to these massive American companies.
Yeah. It's like, have you ever heard of KFAB?
KFAB?
Yeah, KFAB. It's WWE, like the wrestling.
Right, yeah.
So it's like, back in the day, the numbers for wrestling were dropping. So then they introduced KFAB, which is like the backstory, the exciting stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
Gave it like an entertaining aspect. So now people could know more about the guy they're going to cheer for. It would give like a emotional thing behind it. And I think what YouTube has done is they've tried their own KFAB. They've tried pushing their own idea here and been like, oh, they're coming after us. Please help, and that's what it's triggered to do. But I think from their point of view, though, what they've done is just been like, if these guys are if Rupert's trying to, so if I'm Google, it's like, okay, so Rupert's trying to attack me. All right, type up a little note, send to everybody. How do you like that? That's such a simple thing to do, and it delivers quite a message.
And way more broad-reaching than any packer.
Anything. It's literally Google and YouTube. It is the internet.
Exactly.
You can't have a bigger reach than that.
Correct.
So I think from their standpoint, it's like, yeah, they're just standing up and being like, this is nothing. Like this is the power we have.
Correct. But this leads to another point with this video from this YouTube dude, saying that all these data clauses and everything are going to give the big media outlets an advantage. And I personally already think they've got that. And that is the meaning behind this proposed code. If this is such a big problem, why didn't they reach any sort of agreement when this code of conduct was pitched to them as a voluntary code of conduct? Like, just being devil's avocado, they're carrying on, and Facebook's threatening to pack up their bag and ball and go, and Google and YouTube are putting out all these alarmist videos. Why didn't the discussions that occurred earlier on this year about reaching an agreement on a voluntary code, why didn't they come to fruition? Who sunk their heels in those discussions to stop that agreement being reached?
No, Google would have, for sure. If I assume the meeting would have gone something like this. You've got Google on one side of the table in their little board meeting, and then you've got Rupert on the other side. And Rupert's saying, I want these demands met, and Google is looking at it, running the numbers for what their revenue generates, realizing that their revenue is dropping, realizing that their revenue is maybe 0.00% of something of their revenue. So what Alphabet's revenue last year was 161 billion. So Alphabet's the parent company of YouTube and Google. So that's just profit, just last year. That's how much they made last year. So Rupert coming along, maybe making 100 million for them, maybe. That's being generous.
Yep.
Yeah, what's 100 million to someone making 161 billion. It's nothing.
Correct.
So
correct.
I think Rupert's demands are too high, and Google's just calling it, just being like, no, there's no way we're meeting these. It's ridiculous. Here's what we think you're worth. Sign this. And then Rupert's going, no, my ego's too large. I'm not signing something so small. Google's like, well, that's what you're worth. So
yeah, it's a battle of the big guys, for sure.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't think that the revenue generated in Australia by people using Google and Facebook really, in the scheme of things, is that big compared to other countries in the world. Like England would shit all over us in terms of the income that they generate for Google and YouTube and Facebook.
All of the European Union.
Yeah. So
our population is 23 million. Oh, 26 million, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to the rest of the world, that's not big. That's not a large number.
Yeah.
Spain is larger. Spain is larger, and they pulled it on them. So just keep that in mind.
I mean, we'll jump through because I've already talked about the protecting the smaller creators at the start anyway, which is the next thing I had on my list. But while we're still chatting about coin, one of the links that you sent me had for one of your articles, the articles that you'd found, had quite a few links within that article to other articles. And buried in there was an article, an opinion, written by a guy called Adam Fletcher, who's from RMIT, which is a very highly regarded university. He's a media expert. Now, I know you're going to say he got paid, but he is an independent media expert. He has no vested interest. He can't be, because he is essentially paid to provide objective opinions. The cynic's like, yeah.
I believe the word is realist.
Well, I mean, this is where it's fun to sort of take different sides of the thing, but I'm really just I'm not so much taking his side, I'm just going to say what he said, and I think it's worth chatting about it. What he basically said was Australians considering the dire warnings of YouTube and Google should remind themselves that Google and Facebook could have taken a more reasonable approach. They could have this is me adding my bit, they could have negotiated a voluntary code of conduct, or they could have put out a campaign to educate the Australian public on what this proposes without the big fucking flashing yellow warning signs, alarmist approach that they've taken. He's summed up in his article that Google and Facebook are pissed off because they want to maintain the current bargaining power imbalance that exists in Australia, which makes a bit of sense because they do have it at the moment, and so do Murdoch and Packer. Mm-hmm. These were issues that were identified in the inquiry last year by the ACCC, and the whole point, and he's pretty much just repeating what the code says, the draft code, that it's to address that imbalance, right? But what he went on to conclude was that there is no threat to Google and Facebook services in Australia, only a limited threat to their bottom line. Discuss.
Yeah, like I said before, that I don't think the news media businesses in Australia are generating anywhere near the kind of revenue that Google is worrying about as to be affected by.
But that's why he said only a limited. He said limited too. He agrees with you. A limited threat to their bottom line means it's a tiny bit of it, right? It's not. Yeah. So why all the histrionics, I guess?
So first of all, we don't know what deals they made behind closed doors before.
I reckon the deals behind closed doors were big money. I reckon this is what the inquiry found. I reckon this is why this code was proposed.
I think they were going back and forth with one another, and they couldn't agree on something because Rupert thought he's worth more than what he is, and I think he wasn't backing down, and I think Google wasn't backing down either. So we don't know what deals they put forward because their lawyers would have been talking for years. So
I was kind of surprised to read that News Corp is $9 billion a year. I actually thought it'd be more than that, especially because they've bought up so many little outlets and stuff.
They've just taken over.
Because, like, I did actually think it'd be more than that. Even though, no, I'm not sneezing.
Yeah, the opinion of the day is quite cheap, it seems. Yeah.
This Adam Fletcher dude from RMIT also said, and I quite like this comment, the ACCC code is to protect public interest journalism as Google and Facebook, just let me finish the sentence before you get a little cynical upper lip curl. I'm on to you, Finn.
No, it's believable. Okay.
The ACCC code is to protect public interest journalism as Google and Facebook secure an even greater share of ad revenue, the lifeblood of media organisations. So he actually points out that this is the whole point of the code, is protecting public interest journalism. He went on to say, if Google and Facebook were good corporate citizens, they would engage with the ACCC and the federal government to make this code of conduct work and help to preserve public interest journalism rather than just focus on profit. And I find it hard to argue that.
Position itself that way?
Pardon?
Does the code position itself that way?
That is the position.
From the code.
That is the position.
That's the position they say, but when you read the code to reflect that, it doesn't. It seems like it's going to benefit the large media more than anyone.
But it depends on interpretation, because have a look even just earlier when we were chatting what may or may not mean in the context of data. You know, we've both read it differently. So, I mean, that last sentence of his about if Google and Facebook were good corporate citizens, that is essentially what it's trying to do, which is to preserve public interest journalism, to protect Australian journalists. And he's basically said that Google and Facebook are being big fat man babies and just throwing a big tantrum. That was essentially his summary.
It sounds like he's on the side of someone.
Well, mate, is it possible that he's just a credible person who knows a lot more about this stuff than we do, and what he says is correct? Because I didn't read it and go straight to the he's paid to say this. And he's pretty bloody ruthless about the ACCC earlier on in it as well. Like, it's not a one-sided opinion, but in terms of the code itself, he's raising those devil's avocado questions about why didn't they reach a agreement on a voluntary code? Why, you know, they're acting that they're these amazing corporate citizens, and yet they're acting anything but at the moment with these misguided campaigns and so on. Which also the ACCC's now come out again as well, saying, fuck you, Facebook, your reaction's ill-timed and misconceived. The ACCC chairman, Rod Sims.
Sorry to cut you off. It's a KFAB. Like, it's just like an emotional story now. It's trying to get us invested because it's just these companies.
But Facebook threw a massive but Facebook threw a massive tantrum. They didn't say anything for days or weeks, and they already pay for media content. So it's not like we're the first country to go pay up or fuck off. They created.
Yeah, I don't think they ever will though. Like, they know that they're kind of like the banks, right? They know they're too big to defeat. You know, they can't collapse now because they're so large. Well, it may drop off over the coming years, but at the moment, it's too large to just bring down all of a sudden. So I don't think if Facebook it can't even get like stopped here. Like, there's no way people stop using Facebook until Facebook's content just becomes shit and then people stop using it. But that's not going to happen.
And people generally don't use Facebook as their main source of news anyway. Like, if you're on Facebook and someone shares an article on a topic that you're interested, you might open the article and go to that website and read it, or you'll do what most fuck faces on Facebook do, which is see the headline, overreact, and go nuts without even reading the article. How often do you see that happening? A lot, which is why fake news is so dangerous. But Rod Sims from the ACCC says that the point of the code, and he's reiterating again and also trying to clarify just so people understand the point of the code, obviously, is so that all Australian news businesses, big, small, independent, etc., get a seat at the table for fair negotiations with Google and Facebook. The code simply aims to bring fairness and transparency to Facebook's and Google's relationship with Australian news media businesses. The open letter from Google contains misinformation about the code. Google will not be required to charge Australians for the use of its free services, such as Google Search and YouTube. Google is not required to share any additional user data with Australian news businesses unless they choose to do so. And the code allows Australian news businesses to negotiate fair payment for their journalists' work that is included on Google services. So that was a pretty firm and clear statement that came out from Rod Sims, once again trying to explain it. But this is, I guess, Finn, where we end up again with the chats that we've had. It's so hard to know until this thing gets implemented, if it does, and then see it actually in practice.
Yeah. When I was reading that about the YouTube and Google forcing people to pay to not have the content, I wouldn't see that as an option. When they announced that and I read it, I kind of thought they could do it, but that would imply that they would want to keep the legacy media on there, which after what they've done in Spain, I don't think they would do that. I think instead of putting a paywall up, they would just get rid of them so that they didn't have to introduce a paywall.
So it's pretty shitty though, isn't it? If it's pretty shitty of Google to put that information out when that part of it isn't correct. Because most people don't research, dig and delve like we have.
Yeah.
You know, and we've looked at articles coming in from different perspectives. We've watched other YouTube creators coming in with different perspectives. You're interviewing, and speaking on the phone to regional media outlets to get their views on it. It's pretty shitty for Google/YouTube to be putting this stuff out when so many people will just see that and freak the fuck out and not look into it any further. It's kind of dumb. And it's also just, I guess, if you want to take the
strategy.
Hey?
It's a strategy. Like they know what they
it is
to make influence. Like they know how simple it is. They've got the algorithms. So they know exactly what to do to get us to react a certain way.
It's kind of like Australia's having its own Cambridge Analytica in a way, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's also another thing that dawned on me the other day on the beach. I find it really interesting that they really ramped up the scare campaign after the date to put in submissions about the code was closed. So people,
I was on it. I've only seen the one response back since then.
Yeah, but that one's got way more misinformation in it than the earlier one.
Yeah, plus it's a long video. It's a longer video of the guy talking.
Yeah.
With that professor, though, just before I forget, I did try contacting him quite a bit, and I sent him a pretty decent email a few times. And
Matt Koval.
Never got any reply. Never got his phone call. Nothing.
Matt Koval.
I'm blanking on his name right now. The professor from RMIT. Yeah.
Oh, you tried to contact Adam Fletcher.
I got his personal email and contacted him. Got nothing back, and I got his mobile number, and I tried calling him too, but he wouldn't answer. So I wanted to get his opinion on my channel, but I couldn't get him, which is why. But I'm a nobody at the same time, so I can get why they would ignore someone like me. But also, it's like I'm coming to you.
You're showing an interest, though, you know. You're showing an interest, and you're trying to nut it out, see what's going on and stuff. So, I mean, I personally, if I got an email from someone showing interest in any topic that I was into, I'd definitely contact them because they've shown an interest, you know. But
I hate him too many times. Maybe that's why.
Maybe that's why you're cynical of him. But it's an interesting. You know, no, I'm a bit cynical about him too. But it's just interesting looking at all these different players in the mix and what they're saying. But I just think that Google's latest video. See, I'd love to track down Matt Koval that does the YouTube video.
Yeah, I tried that.
Business shirt, and he's all neat and rehearsed and smooth.
Yeah.
But the stuff that's coming out of his mouth, a lot of it isn't actually correct.
Yeah. I think they know they got the power to just say whatever shit they want to say to get their point across.
Which I do actually think it's cool that the ACCC, at least in that regard, has said, sorry, that's actually pretty fucked up, because that's what their role is. If you want to strip back all of the pressure that they might be getting from Packer and Murdoch and influence from the federal government and everything else. At the end of the day, them pointing out misinformation in those YouTube and Google videos is their role. That's exactly what they're set up to do. They're supposed to be protecting.
I don't know why they're publicly responding though. If I was them, I'd just be not putting anything out. Just be like, no, we'll decide to pass the code with or without making a public comment and retaliating to some bullshit that Google or YouTube made up or Facebook made up.
I think they've been
wasting time doing it. Just it doesn't matter though, because they're the ones going to be taking it to get passed or not. So who cares?
But they're the Australian regulator, and it's Australian consumers that are getting bombarded with this scare campaign crap from YouTube and Google, and they'd be getting gazillions of phone calls and inquiries from people, and it's the right of reply. But also, they're Australia's regulating body. YouTube and Google aren't Australian companies, so I think if anything, it's Google putting another video out that's the issue, not the ACCC responding to their shit.
Yeah, but it's just a business move, you know. It's just a tactic to try and win.
But the average punter on YouTube, the average little Australian YouTuber, or the people that watch Australian YouTube channels, wouldn't be thinking that way. Which is why the ACCC keeps going, okay, we're going to make it more simplified again, and they should be rebutting things that YouTube or Facebook say if it's not correct. That's what that is actually. If you take the code out of the equation and just look at their role in this country, that's their role, is to protect Australian consumers. So I don't have a problem with them responding. I just find it bizarre that still, after how long have we been chatting about this now? 2 months, 3 months?
Yeah, coming up.
They're still never the twain shall meet. There's no concessions from either side going, okay, like the ACCC is not saying, look, okay, Google, Facebook, there's a bit of misinformation there, but at least we can agree on ting, ting, ting. And there's nothing the same coming back from Google and Facebook saying some of this is fucked, but we do agree with this, this, and this. Like they haven't moved closer.
Yeah.
And we're still sort of in the middle ground.
It's just like
this way and that way, and it's fucking weird. And we're not even media outlets. Like, imagine, how have your discussions been with the other regional news outlets? Are they concerned? Have they taken a different stance to Helen the other night on your live?
They think the same thing as her. None of them, though, stated that it may actually boost them. They were all just like, we're going to just continue on as normal, as if this isn't happening. It's a summarized version of what they're saying, but yeah, that's the gist of it. So yeah, like it makes sense kind of, but at the same time, the internet's a pretty big deal. Like, things that are going on there should matter to the local community. Like, in whatever way it passes or doesn't pass, that is directly going to affect every single person in Australia.
A lot of them aren't even online though, Finn. That's the thing. Like, a lot of them are traditional, old-fashioned print media. That's the way they are. So the online stuff doesn't bother them because they're already not popping. I mean, I've just typed in my local one, and the online newspaper is essentially just a copy of the most recent version of the paper in a little slideshow. But there's nothing else on that website. Like, there's a community diary, how to advertise, and that's it. But if you punched in, I'm going to try Google.
I've been to 145 of their websites, and I'd probably say 130 of them are pretty professional looking, up-to-date websites with like heaps of articles on it, scrollable, nice titles, very, very well done websites. About maybe 15 or 20 of them were the style you were describing now. My area falls into that, which didn't respond at all, by the way, which is quite funny. It's so there are a lot that are sourcing
Yeah,
it
I
by
know. I get that, but also there's a lot of little ones that are even smaller that may not even have popped up in that list, because I just punched in a headline off the online version of my weekly local rag and punched it in Word Perfect, the heading, and what came up was an article from the Washington Post in Google. So there's, already this website, which is literally just there's even an article by Matt Preston from taste.com.au, but this particular article headline, this is literally just looking like a screenshot on a screen. The content isn't accessible anywhere unless you open up this newspaper and look at it. I just discovered there's a real estate agent in my area called Khan Dick.
That's glorious.
Khan Dick. Now there's chat. We've still got a really good crowd of people. Oh, chat's frozen. I'm sorry, guys. I've been looking at StreamYards going, why isn't anyone chatting? But over in
Live chat.
yeah, there's a bit of chat. Oh no, not much though. Yeah, Washington Post is full of adverts. Would anyone like to jump up and chat for maybe 5-10 minutes before we wrap this up? Unless, Finn, did you have? I think we've concluded once again that we've got the big guys. We've got the Google, Facebook, and the ACCC still poles apart, and you and I are kind of going 5 steps this way, 10 steps this way, 10 steps that, but they haven't moved at all.
Yeah.
No concessions.
Yeah, they seem to be sticking to things. I don't think Google's going to budge at all. And knowing Rupert's ego and Rupert's desire for the world, which is total conquest, I don't think he's aware that he's already lost to Google. Google has already taken control. It already controls the earth. So I don't think he's realized that. And I think what this is him realizing that in public. So it'll be, like we all know how it's going to turn out. ACCC is going to pass it. Google's going to pull out. And
Parliament.
Hopefully what Helen was saying and local media will rise up again. Which would be
brilliant.
Yeah. That's a utopic idea, by the way.
Yeah. But will the next level
sometimes it's different. Yeah.
Will the next level up though, where you do have to pay for newspapers and they do have strong online content? Because she was like my local rag, where it's a free paper. Like, what about that next tier above her, where people actually pay for a regional newspaper? And it's got a website and so on. But you're right. I like the utopic outcome. But the thing is, it's the government that has to pass it. So it'll be interesting when it gets tabled to see what the discussions are like. That's one of the benefits of us being able to tune in. And we may even stream live one day if it works in with our schedules. If there's a discussion about it in Parliament, it'd be quite good to watch it live, I reckon, if you're up for that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Hopefully they give us warning. So,
Hey?
These kind of things don't usually give much warning when they are passed. These are the ones that get rushed through.
I have got some contacts that can keep an eye out for us and let us know when it's tabled to go before the House. So we may not get a lot of notice from the public. So I'll keep an eye on that. I'll actually make a note to get Laura to let me know about that. I also know some MPs in federal Parliament, so I doubt that they'll comment on it before it goes before Parliament, but it might be good to get some conversations happening with them after it, or during. I don't know. Sometimes they'll chat about it, sometimes they won't. If they've already got up and spoken in Parliament about it, they may talk about it publicly because it's kind of out there now, but we'll see. I just wanted to throw in one other thing because it hasn't come up before in our discussions previously. So if anyone is curious, this does actually have a bit of an impact on international news channels as well. We've basically got international news channels watching closely what happens with this proposed code in Australia, because if they do an Australian news story, they will be affected as well. It's not limited to Australian stories from within Australia. So we've got the world kind of watching at the moment to see what happens, because they aren't getting paid by Google or Facebook at the moment for their content. Will it push these tech giants, Google and Facebook, to have to start paying international journalists that are writing Australian public interest stories as well? Will it extend beyond Australia?
No, I don't think so. We haven't seen that happen in Spain. So
no,
I see no reason.
Australian journalists that just happen to be in Baghdad, for example, why shouldn't they get paid? They're Australian journos. It's a code of conduct for Australian journalists. Is geography relevant?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Do you do? See, I think they'd be covered by it.
That's what it would have to depend on what website it was getting uploaded to. If it was an Australian website that story was getting posted to, then
what they're saying is the code. They're saying that the international news channels could be affected if they do an Australian news story.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it's something to
I don't think it should, but, if they say that they're going to do it, then I see no reason to think that they'd be lying about it.
But if the code is about Australian news, doesn't matter where that story is coming from, as long as it's about Australian news.
Well, yeah, it'd have to depend on what website it's getting uploaded to. It would have to depend what country that's registered to. As long as it's not Australia, then I don't think they should be able to do anything to it.
No, well, it's just an interesting thing for us to keep an eye on, because what the ACCC is saying, this is about Australian news, and the news channel's not relevant. It's the fact that it's Australian news that's relevant. So if Chris Hemsworth won an Oscar and an American news outlet did a story on it, that is an Australian news story, because it's about Chris Hemsworth and it's in the Australians' public interest to know he's won an Oscar, if you're into that shit. I'm just using him as an example.
I was going to say that's a different kind of news to what I call news.
Oh, come on, Chris Hemsworth.
No, it's
Australia's.
Well, it depends. If that story gets published on an American website, was like TMZ or whatever kind of platform, then no. If that corporation isn't Australian news, then yeah, I don't think it should be affected. It'd be weird if they did do something, because
the ACCC is saying that it's irrelevant what country owns the news business. It's about Australian news, and I think that's just an interesting, quirky little twist as well, which is why a lot of international channels are watching closely. Because if it does include them, and rightly so, their journalists should be paid. That's the whole point of the code, right? It's just an interesting twist, I reckon.
Yeah.
And now I want to move to LA and write stories about Chris Hemsworth and make way more money than I would sitting on YouTube trying to get to 1,000 subs and 1 million viewing hours so I can get monetized. 3 articles on Chris Hemsworth, Google and Facebook.
Get out there.
Price.
Send him an email, see if he wants to come on and chat to you. Hey, Chris, what do you think about this ACCC code?
I've seen him in the crowd at Blues Fest a couple of times, so that makes us like this, right? My sister met him, bitch. She didn't even know who it was.
I don't believe that.
Well, her sister-in-law was with her and let her know by squeezing her arm and cutting off her blood supply. But yeah, I like me some Chris Hemsworth too, Gleb here. And I think what a great note to end it on. Second only to Chris Hemsworth, Finn is also Australia's gift to the planet.
No, thank you. I probably don't agree with that, but thank you. I've been trying to find a image here of the news pyramid that what companies own what. Yeah. But I wasn't able to find it because Google's search has changed to what it used to be. Very interesting that. Sorry, everyone. Yeah. I was able to find Disney's pyramid, though. Disney owns a shit ton.
Oh, Disney, holy shit. Geraldine just said if I get AdSense, please have Tina Lady adverts. You probably don't even know what they are, Finn, and you probably don't need to know either. But I reckon we should chat again soon. I'd really like to try and do this Cambridge Analytica show in the next week because it's just so fascinating. But I really need to refresh my memory on a few bits and pieces from it because
a couple of weeks ago, and that was not a couple of weeks, a couple of days ago, I think Friday. So that was pretty good to just hear him talking again. You're just like, holy shit, this guy, he designed so much shit that he shouldn't have, that the whole group shouldn't have, but they did it anyway. And when you hear what they built, it's just, it's nuts.
Well, I just want to make sure I've got all the names and bits and pieces right for us to chat about it. But I like, there's a lot of comedy that happens on my channel. Thanks so much, Finn, for hanging out and chatting. It's really good to catch up again, Groover. But I do like to share some comedic offerings on my channel as often as I can. And one of the things that I'm a huge fan of is bad lip reading stuff on YouTube. So I thought, because it's one of, Geraldine's your 30th subscriber. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Look how much you've grown. You had like 9 subs when I first met you. It's
awesome. And all with Google trying to suppress me. Okay.
So yeah, I love the bad lip reading channels, and since we are going to be looking at Cambridge Analytica in the next week, I don't know if have you seen the bad lip reading stuff?
No.
Okay. So what bad lip reading does, it's a channel where they take footage of an event, so like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's wedding, and they look really closely at the mouths and what they're saying, and they change what's coming out of their mouths. And it's called bad lip reading. But this is actually one that they did of, it goes for about 5 minutes. So I fully understand if people leave before it ends, but I'm going to watch it to the end because I love it. But this is, this is Mark Zuckerberg being interrogated. And it's one of my favorite bad lip reading videos on YouTube. So enjoy. I'll jump back on at the end and say goodbye to everyone. But yeah, hang around if you want to laugh. It's fucking gold. Here we go. And you'll work out what's going on very quickly. If I hit play, even more so.
Thanks for coming, Mr. Zuckerberg. How are you?
Just a sec. Mom, could you get me my Frodo ring? I want it here.
Now that we got the ring sorted out, we can move on to the topic at hand, which is the concerns that have been raised. Need water, okay? Well, as I was saying, there's been a lot of concern about people's private information and how.
He's such an alien. Look at him.
Are you blowing bubble? I'm gonna have to spank you. Hey, now you good? I swear, mask on. Listen, kid, blink if you're not a lamp. We'd like you to look at me a smile just to show that you can. Oh, good heavens.
Oh, God, that's scary.
For the rest of the day, will you not do that, please? I have to admit that all of this is just boring as beans. And what are we talking about? And what am I at? Oh, yeah. When I have Facebook, then do I also have the internet?
Yeah. I'd like everyone to know that my van is for sale.
Great.
I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, but if you guys could kind of like drive it and stuff, then yeah, I'm pretty sure you'd want to buy it. No, wait, because this van, I mean, It's special.
No, hey, I'll send you a picture and you'll say, I want this in my driveway.
No, please don't send anything. Okay, well, I guess you're stupid. It's just a van.
I told you it's a special van.
Do you think that I might need to shave my head for a Frenchman? Because some people have said to me, shave your head. What do you think?
Just so you know, I will not do that.
Okay.
Mr. Zuckerman, World War I was awful. Do you agree? Yes. Well, why are we even here then? Senator Graham?
Judy, you were meant to be only with me. Da, 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 da. Judy, you were born in
Senator
moonlight.
Graham, do you got any questions for me? Or
Oh, shoot. See, what happened there is you guys caught me singing Judy Moonlight because I really like it. Wow. Because Judy Moonlight is what the song is about.
Ask me something.
Well,
do you like your heart rate?
I'll get back to you about that.
it's my turn.
No, I mean, no, we probably shouldn't.
Would you say that if I lived in a treehouse? I doubt it. Have you ever smelled a girl's feet? Because I imagine me and you could be doing that at some point. No problem, little friend.
Don't try to get in my Porsche again.
But I really like you.
Mr. Facebook man, lift your hand out like this, boy. Swing it out like this. You think it's hard? Believe me, I could hold a hand in the air all day. You see it? I see it. This is where I'm from, to stare at the outstretched hand. That's for having your hair like that. Hey, I'll go, bro. Do you worry about those little weenies you get from Barb from downstairs? I do not want that to be a thing. Hey, really, man, I think people will find you more fun if you open your mind about the little weenies. I doubt that. Over here. Sorry, kid, I forget your name.
Bojang Bugami.
Bugatti, that's good. Hey, what is that? Flemish or French or Japanese or Anglo? Okay.
Hang, buddy. Who hang?
It's got a Harry Potter tie on.
Well, really, that's great.
That kind of reminds me of how I knew Einstein back when I was just a kid. And I would go to his apartment, and dude had a green beanbag.
I wish that was right.
Yeah, and he had this deal where you could also make all the chocolate milk you liked. Yeah, I can tell you what Einstein would have said about Facebook. Horse manure pile.
That's cool.
Turd satchel. Remember, those are Einstein's words.
Hey, Mark. No, do not.
How'd you even find those guys?
Just find them. Oh, look, and there's hundreds of them. It's one of my favorite channels, but that's why I've got to do some research on Cambridge Analytica, because every time I go to write some notes about it, I go back to that bad lip reading. I have to remind myself that's not actually it is the Senate hearing, but fuck, it's funny because they just look at the things that people are saying, or what it looks like they're saying. It's gold. You need to
It's priceless.
I always like leaving on it that your laughter was very contagious during that film.
That was brilliant. Whoever made that, hats off to you. Link them in the description so they can get views. That was brilliant.
Look at it. I mean, I will help them build their channel. They've only got 38 million subscribers or something, but
yeah, small numbers, rookie numbers.
oh well, I might as well. We will wrap up now, and I'm going to put another one of their videos up because this is my absolute favourite of theirs. Hang on. But thank you again, Finn, so much. It was a lot of fun. Oh,
Keen to talk about Cambridge next time. It'll be
yeah,
it's a heavy subject, but you know it's probably still going on now, so it'd be good to talk about it to make people aware if they're not already. I don't know if you've talked about it on your channel before.
Hey, Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah, have you brought it up here before?
Oh, only in passing conversations and stuff, not a in-depth. No, it'll be a virgin conversation in that regard. Do you like a bit of Star Wars?
Yeah, not the new ones.
The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh yeah, it's classic.
Have you heard the Seagulls song before?
Definitely not.
Okay, well, this is also from the Bad Lip Reading guys. Again, they've used the mouths and come out with what it looks like people are saying. Enjoy it, guys. I'm going to end the broadcast when the song ends, but thanks again, Finn, and we'll chat behind the scenes and work out a good time to chat Cambridge Analytica. Anyone that's interested in that, you're more than welcome to jump up on panel, but I'll probably get copyright claims for doing this, but who gives a shit? I can do it while I'm not monetized. That's one advantage for not being monetized on YouTube.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
But
Thanks, Corey, 798 subscriber. Cheers.
Yeah. Here's the Seagulls song, which a few of you might know. Enjoy it, and we'll see you soon. Bye until next time, Groovers. Get myself sorted here. See you, Finn.
Yeah.
For your thoughts.
I hate Brenda, and a bad guy hit me in the shin, and I peed all in my pants.
There's nothing a little music can't help. Rockin', and rollin'. Down to the beach I'm strolling. But the seagulls poke at my head, not fun. I said, seagulls, stop it now. Everyone told me not to stroll on that beach. Said seagulls gonna come, hook me in a coconut, and they did, and me going like, nothing I could do but yell when these birds attacked me. When I tried to run, I fell, and then these kids started laughing, and then got hit in the neck with a hacky sack. Where did it come from? I run. I can be a backpack while you run, jump and stop. Put me down. I love to groove and boogie. Yeah.
Great.
Show you some dance moves.
No, I don't want you to.
If I had your giant feet out there on the beach, could about run those birds.
Ow!
You're a psycho wiener.
Let me grab my beater.
Stop it, please.
Come on, man. Quit that banging.
Hey, what's that stank?
You put a fish in our basket.
Oh, yeah. I forgot I did that.
You owe me an apology.
Just hold your breath and see when the time is right. First back your face. Yeah. I run. I can be your backpack while you run. Swing from a hairy vine. I can be your backpack while you climb. Stand on one hand and lift. Rocks with your special gift. Run, jump. Now breathe. That's good. Like that. One day I was walking and I found a big log. Then I rolled the log over. Underneath was a tiny little stick. And I was like, that log had a child. Listen, boy, someday when you are older, you could get hit by a boulder. While you're lying there screaming, come help me, please, the seagulls. Move your knees. Stop it now.
Yeah, whatever. You're sort of pitchy.
Didn't like it.
Listen, man, I'm not your friend.
Don't fall asleep. Stop it now.
Wow.
There you go.
That was something else.
Take care, everyone, and see you again very soon. And thanks again, Finn.
Always. See you
Bye.
later.
See ya.